Hey everybody, this is my thoughts on Brothers in Arms Earned in Blood. You're probably wondering why this is an MTO and not a review. It's because I've pretty much reviewed this game already. It was called Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. This is basically a standalone expansion pack. It's really not even a full sequel. It's developed by Gearbox Software and originally published by Ubisoft in October of 2005, which means it was released 7 months after the first game, and they both run on Unreal Engine 2, they both have almost identical graphics. In fact, there's a massive amount of asset reuse for this one compared to the original game, so there's really not much to talk about there. Now, they did add in a few new things as far as the visuals go, but it's really nothing major to speak of, because it's basically a couple of weapons and some vehicles, and that's kinda it, really. When you get past that into the meat of the presentation, once again, the voice acting is the strong point of the game, and everything else is either mediocre or downright weak in the case of many of the weapon sounds in this, because they're ripped directly from Road to Hill 30. The music is pretty forgettable, although it is still well done, and you end up with a game that is extremely dated in terms of presentation, where it didn't look as good as Unreal Tournament 2004, it didn't even look as good as games that came out in about 2003, 2002. And yet, this came out the same month that the original Fear did. And the original Fear, while definitely looking dated, still has some pretty fantastic effects in it to this day. Never mind the fact that Doom 3, Far Cry, and Half-Life 2 all were released the previous year. This game, like its predecessor, looked ugly even in its day, with about the only halfway decent thing in the visuals being the environments, which are decently detailed, despite being fairly linear and very, very bland. But of course, what really matters here are story and gameplay, and the story in this is that you are playing as Sergeant Red Heartsock, who is one of the soldiers under Matt Baker's command. He was the guy you played as in Road to Hill 30. And like the first game, this one follows Heartsock and his soldiers from D-Day all the way up to the Battle of Bloody Gulch. And while you are playing through different skirmishes and different missions than the previous game, ultimately, it feels like a complete rehash of the first one. Same exact tone, same exact attempts at making things emotional when you just don't really care. Really, the only major difference is that instead of the first game being entirely from Matt's perspective, in the perspective of Earned in Blood, it's following Heartsock's recollections while he is talking to Army historian SLA Marshall. So instead of basically just following the troops as they go through the battles, you're just dealing with a frame story here. And to be perfectly honest with you, I lost interest within the first 20 minutes, and it's really not because of the plot. It's because of the gameplay. It is an exact copy of Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30 in terms of its core gameplay mechanics. The only changes between the original and this were some very slight tweaks. Things like making the enemy AI slightly better, and not making your own friendly AI any better. So while the enemies will move noticeably better and use cover more effectively and use suppressing fire more effectively and react to being suppressed more effectively, your guys are still all morons who run around like headless chickens, run directly into enemy fire when you explicitly tell them not to do so, who will stand in the middle of the open to let themselves get shot to bits, who will just stand in doorways or other passageways and block the passage for their entire squad or other squads, and thus you end up with situations where you're just stuck because your guys can't move, and there's not much you can do to stop that other than just load a checkpoint or hope it sorts itself out. And of course, you still can't shoot for crap because the sights just wave all over the damn place and there's cone of fire mechanics, so even if you can aim at something, good luck actually hitting it, meaning you can waste entire magazines to take down a single enemy, which is incredibly frustrating and, frankly, pretty terrible FPS mechanics. Which is of course to be expected, all things considered, but then you get to the really nasty problem that this thing has. You see, a lot of people would argue that making the game more difficult is an objectively good thing. They are failing to account for the fact that the mechanics in this game are terrible. Because the only 3 commands in the game are still rally on my position, go to this position, and suppress this target or just attack this target in general, that means that you can't really adapt to situations very effectively, and you can't set up any sort of dynamic plans. Because of this, you can't really have many contingency options for when the enemy inevitably decides to move from their cover position to another cover position and thus get the better of you. This is something that didn't really present itself very much in Road to Hill 30 because the enemy AI in Road to Hill 30 was pretty stupid and would generally just sit in one particular spot until you mowed them all down. But in Earned in Blood, they made the enemies smarter. They'll try to flank you more often. And good luck with that, because good luck actually hitting anything in this game, and good luck getting your soldiers to do exactly what you want them to do with only 3 commands and basically no tactical options whatsoever. What's that? That's a really heavily fortified position that would really benefit from having a grenade thrown at it? Well, you better just hope that they actually do that, because otherwise they're just going to sit there and shoot their carbines and SMGs ineffectively at it. You would be utterly amazed at the number of times I've seen my guys throw grenades at just one guy hiding behind a shack, whereas for a heavily fortified machine gun position or something along those lines, they just sit there and try to shoot it to death when they can't even hit anything. And because the only tactic in the entire game is suppress and flank, it becomes extremely repetitive extremely quickly. The changes from Road to Hill 30 to Earned in Blood are so incredibly slight, most of the time you don't even notice them. And the ones you do notice are the ones that make the game more frustrating, like the improved enemy AI. Although there is one change that you will notice right off the bat. There's an additional item in the main menu which is called the skirmish mode. This is a mode that lets you pick one of 2 characters in a particular side. You're either the Americans or you're the Germans, and when you pick your character, you are given that particular loadout and you get 2 squads of infantry to go along with you. And from there you try to complete the various objectives of the missions that you can pick from, and those can be things like you need to destroy a certain thing, or you need to wipe out all the enemies in a particular level, or any number of things like that. It's pretty much a combination of single player and multiplayer. In fact, I believe it can be played co-op. There is also a versus multiplayer which you can't play anymore because the Ubisoft service was shut down years ago. But ultimately, the skirmish mode just ends up being more of the same. It's just if you decide to play as the Germans, then all of a sudden all your guys are speaking German and they have German weapons, and that's pretty much the only main difference. They do throw in some different objectives based on the missions that you're playing, but other than that, there's a pretty negligible difference between them. And quite frankly, the skirmish mode wore its welcome out a few minutes after I started playing it. You see, I came to the conclusion while attempting to play this for what I was hoping was going to be a full-on review, I just decided, you know what, I've already reviewed this game. It was called Road to Hill 30, and it sucked. So if you want a deeper examination, just watch the Road to Hill 30 review and then take a look at the differences that Earned in Blood has, which are very slight, and you'll know right from the get-go whether or not Earned in Blood is something you'd even want to play in the first place. If for some utterly baffling reason you actually liked the piece of garbage known as Road to Hill 30, well, you probably like Earned in Blood too. As for me, I can find basically no redeeming qualities here other than the fact that this is one of very, very few tactical shooters set in World War II. And quite frankly, if you're looking for a tactical World War II shooter to play, just play Hidden and Dangerous 2. You'll find it's a considerably better game than this. And to address something that came up in the Road to Hill 30 review, I'm going to compare this to Star Wars Republic Commando, which isn't really a very good game either, but it's a better tactical shooter than this, and it's actually more accessible than this too. So the idea that this was popular because it was accessible, no. Republic Commando actually came out before even the first Brothers in Arms game did, and it was, again, both better than this and more accessible than this. Which of course leads me to, once again, my only 2 reasons that I could ever see anyone playing the Brothers in Arms series, at least the first 2 of them. I don't know about Hell's Highway yet, because I have yet to work on that. But as far as Road to Hill 30 and Earned in Blood go, there are only 2 reasons that I could ever see anyone liking them. 1 is nostalgia. 2 is the fact that there are very few World War II tactical shooters in existence. But as a game, as a first-person shooter and a tactical shooter at that, it is extremely deficient. And I cannot remotely recommend it, nor could I even force myself to finish the game to do a full-on review of it. So sorry if you wanted me to finish the game and review it because you have some bizarre idea that I absolutely need to finish 100% of every single game I play ever, but this particular game didn't earn that right. Instead, it proved to just be a rehash of Road to Hill 30. Almost exactly the same in terms of gameplay mechanics, and the gameplay mechanics were the primary reason I couldn't stand the first game either. Now, I do know they changed some things up when they made Hell's Highway, so I will be giving that one a chance to quote-unquote redeem the series, but my expectations for that one are extremely low at this point, so if it manages to somehow be better than the first two games, then that would just be a miracle as far as I'm concerned. But as for Road to Hill 30 and, in this particular video's case, Earned in Blood, don't bother. Thanks for watching.